And welcome into Redacted, the show where we talk about the things you won't hear in the mainstream media, or at least we try to do it without an establishment spin. So we don't have any billionaires funding us. We do our best to bring you the truth. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And we do the show every day live at 4 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. So go ahead and be sure to like this video. It really, really helps in the YouTube algorithm if you're watching us on YouTube because, you know, YouTube likes to censor us and ban us on a regular basis. So when you actually smash that like button, it pushes us further out to people that need to see what we're talking about on our show. Right?
That's right. Yes, we come to you with no pre-existing agenda.
Or conditions. Do you have a pre-existing condition?
Well, not really. Not one that's relevant. Anyway, this is the part where Clayton usually tells everybody that I have a vitamin D deficiency.
That's right.
But not today.
Where else are you deficient? But we have a fantastic show lined up for you on this Monday. We hope you had a wonderful weekend. And we have a very special guest that we wanted to introduce on the show today. We wanted to welcome in Scott Ritter, former Marine, former UN weapons inspector. He's been critical in his analysis right now. I mean, critical from a resource and source perspective on what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening geopolitically right now. So Scott's going to be joining us for the full hour and 10 minutes or so, depending on how long we prattle on. Scott, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So you are someone who actually knows what you're talking about when you advocate for peace, whereas me, I'm just kind of a hippie that uses cloth diapers and wants everyone to be peaceful. But you understand that there is like actual method to the madness when it comes to that kind of thing. So we're glad for that perspective. So we just don't have, you know, a peace-loving hippie, but we have someone who's actually done the analysis. Thank you for joining us.
That's right. So Scott's going to be diving deep into a bunch of stories that we're going to cover on the show today. So these are the stories we're going to cover on the big show. We're going to talk, number one, about what's happening in inflation in Washington as inflation is rising. And the White House has a certain set of numbers that they are pushing out to you, but there's an actual real set of numbers that they're keeping from you. So we're going to talk about the way that they're manipulating these numbers. And we heard from the White House over the weekend on their plan for this. We're going to show you their plan and see if it's sufficient for you.
Also, we're going to talk about Ukraine continuing to ask for more weapons, even as their situation in the conflict seems increasingly dire.
That's right. So Scott's going to weigh in on that. We're also going to look at the blame game, the fingers being pointed back and forth. We knew that this was going to happen, right? As this thing started to collapse, we knew that there was going to be some sort of Western finger pointing at Ukraine. We're fine to use them as cannon fodder and destroy their country, but it appears that the Western leadership now is starting to point the fingers. We're going to tell you the blame game that's starting to unfold.
And we're going to talk about woke golf. Woke golf. That's all you need to know about that right now, and as it pertains to Saudi Arabia.
That's right. So all of that and so much more that we're going to talk about. Let's get this show started right now.
Welcome into Redacted. This is the show where we bring you the stories that the mainstream media may or may not cover, and we bring them to you without a bias or pre-existing agenda or condition. We do this show every Monday through Friday at what?
We already said that. But before we jump into the stories, I want to tell you about our community and our newsletter. If you would like to take the conversations we have on this show even deeper, you can do that. You don't have to worry about censorship. We actually have a website devoted to this. It's redacted.inc, where you can go and become a channel member. Very, very important to do because, like we just saw literally today, another Twitter account, another big YouTube account also taken down for covering real news, and they don't want you to do that. So we have a website. Please go to redacted.inc to sign up and become a member.
That's right. And we have content there that you may not get on this platform. In fact, content we can guarantee you things that we are not allowed to or comfortable talking about on this platform that we put on our own platform. For as little as $4 per month, you get access to this exclusive content. So please head on over to redacted.inc and sign up today to support our independent channel and voices.
That's right. And we also get your super chats in now. We're going to do super chats at the end of the show like we do every day. So please support us there. You can fire in your questions and we will answer them at the end of the show. We are going to get to our top stories, but first I wanted to reintroduce our special guest, Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector, former Marine. Is it fair to say, Scott, like you're never, they always say like you're never a former Marine. Is that you're always a Marine? Is that the...
Oh, I mean, once a Marine, always a Marine. You're never an ex-Marine. If you say I'm an ex-Marine, that means you've walked away from the Marine Corps. But I don't mind the former, because the last thing I want people to think is that somehow I'm still on active duty or in the reserves and I'm speaking on behalf of the Marine Corps. I am a private citizen who is very proud of my time in the Marine Corps, so I proudly call myself a former Marine.
And right there underneath Scott, you can see his Telegram channel. He's doing a fantastic analysis, excellent writing. And of course, you were banned on Twitter. So we would put your Twitter handle underneath you, but you were banned there. So we can't do that. But your Telegram channel is the best place to connect with you, right?
It is right now. I think it's the only place to connect with you. That or Facebook, but I think right now only my family connects with me on Facebook.
All right. Well, you're here now and we're connected.
Yeah.
So if you have questions for Scott, please put them in the chat and we will try to get to them while we have him. And obviously a super chat will make that a little bit easier for us.
But let's start today by talking about inflation. And we're continuing to see some record new inflations. Just take a look at the stock market today and an absolute, I mean, it's literally circling the toilet this afternoon. Here's the S&P 500 trading in a bear market territory as stocks slide. This was the Wall Street Journal just a short time ago, a few minutes ago, actually. CNBC had its hair on fire, flipping out, freaking out. Maybe they'll actually start to pay attention to how bad inflation has gotten because now it's affecting Wall Street.
Right.
You know?
I was thinking today about the earlier, when the inflation numbers really started to rocket and how reporters were like, yes, but Americans can afford it. It's okay, right? And so that kind of condescending talk has screeched to a halt. It is not quite a bear market because a bear market means a 20% slide off of recent highs. We're not there yet, but 4% means we're getting close, right? That's a big drop in just a single day. That's just the S&P 500. So what are analysts telling us? Oh, they're telling us it's about inflation. It's about Putin. It's about Ukraine. I mean, you know this one, right? Sing along if you know it.
Right. So take a look at this. This is the headline of hotter than expected inflation numbers right now. Core inflation both rose more than forecasted in May. So higher. So Friday night it comes out. They sort of release this on Friday night, right, when they're hoping people aren't paying attention. But people are paying attention.
Yes.
You know, it's like it's one thing when Wall Street gets hit with this. It's quite another thing when the average American recognizes this at the pump. Now, I thought Tom Elliott had a really good take on this on inflation. So here's Tom Elliott's tweet on this. He said, breaking, U.S. annualized inflation just peaked 17% for the first time since World War II, the highest rate in 75 years. The media are misreporting the real data, and I'll explain why. So take a closer look at this chart. So this chart shows two different numbers here. This is consumer inflation versus the actual data. So the number in blue is the actual number, okay? And in what year did they switch it? So
he points out that there were a number of policy changes starting in the 70s that started to change the definition of inflation from government printing more money, from expansion of money, because it used to be that inflation accounted for just a basket of goods for a standard of living, right? An agreed upon standard of living that everyone normally buys, let's say milk and eggs and that kind of, the electricity, gas, those rent. And they don't do that anymore. And so through all of these market manipulations now, inflation looks lower, but it does not account for the fact that the government continues to expand money for itself.
Right. So put this chart back up if you can. Sorry, I know we went past it, but these numbers are telling, right? So there's one number that the government is giving you, right?
Yes.
It's total horseshit, right? And the real number is way higher. It's like closer to 17%.
It's 16.8%, right?
So Friday night, their hair is on fire, 8.6%. And of course, they're all trying to, just distract you from all of this. And of course, this is how President Biden is continuing to spin this. I want to get Scott's perspective on this. So this is all because of one man. Take a listen to President Biden explaining this.
Putin's price hike is hitting America hard. Gas prices at the pump, energy and food prices account for half of the monthly price increases since May.
So Scott, it's all about, it's Putin's fault.
Well, shame on him. No, this is, under normal circumstances, I would like to believe people would just shake their head and say, how stupid does Biden think we are? Because this is all the fault of policies enacted by his administration, yes. Policies that defend a despicable regime in Ukraine. I can't even begin to tell you how low my opinion is of Zelensky and the far right-wing political parties that surround him in Ukraine. This is a president who thought he could intimidate Putin, bully Putin, deter action by threatening unprecedented economic sanctions, not realizing that he's dealing with a man who is not just a man, but a nation, a government, a system of governance that is far more capable, competent, and intelligent than the Biden administration. And he threatened him in June of 2021 at Geneva, looked him in the eye and told him, you're going down if you do this. He gave him 6 months to prepare a counter. And Putin sure did prepare a counter. This boomerang back. The ruble will be rubble. The ruble's doing quite well. The European economy is tanking even worse than ours. And it's getting to the point where we may not have a reverse gear on this car. That's how bad Biden is making this. At some point in time, the damage is so great that you can't just simply reverse it by changing policy. So, no, this isn't Vladimir Putin's fault. This is Joe Biden's fault. And frankly speaking, it's America's fault because we continue to buy into the notion that Vladimir Putin is some sort of evil dictator, that Russia is the modern day version of the Third Reich, that everything that comes out of Moscow is bad. And we aren't being as critical as we should be about what's going on in Washington, D.C.
Right. Today I was reading an article in Reuters that said that India and China are the new recipients of Russian oil. And I just kind of laughed because I was like, way to catch up. That's not new, right? Those places have already been buying. Like, Russia had this in the tank. Like, they were kind of smart about diversifying their wealth and selling to other nations that were not just Western. And these places have already had existing relationships. Well,
also, we saw today, too, that these numbers, Scott, I think what's interesting is that he continues to, I think what you said at the beginning is spot on. I think he thinks we're stupid because if you looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers on this, gas prices were already going up significantly and inflation was already at a 40-year high prior to February 24th. That's any idiot with a keyboard and a mouse can literally go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and see this data. So he's lying right to our faces when he tells us this is Putin's fault.
No, there's no doubt. Again, I need to step in and just say right up front, I am not an economist. So you're getting a little outside of my comfort zone when we start talking about a big number. I know what I spend at the gas pump. I know what I spend at the grocery store. And I know what I bring home every month. And I know that there's a growing divergence between the two. I also know that a lot of this data that you're talking about was tracking in the wrong direction prior to this equation. There's any number of reasons. Bad domestic policy. I mean, this is Joe Biden, encouraging the kind of spending that contributes to inflation.
Right.
COVID. We still have the whole COVID issue, and now on top of that, though, when things are going bad, you don't throw in an economic nuclear bomb. by sanctioning Russian energy, by disrupting global food sources. So as bad as things were going in, he just made it 20 times worse by enacting the policies. And again, I'm not an economist, but I was smart enough to say, and I said this right in December, we will lose this economic fight. Russia will win. Europe will be destroyed. The American economy will be severely impacted. And this is a non-economist saying this in December when taking a look at what, the kind of sanctions that Biden was threatening. So if I can figure it out, and literally I'm, simple Marine, one would hope that economists could have figured it out, but everybody bought into these sanctions as if they were somehow this magic policy that would, make everything good, that make the Russians collapse, make Europe and America stronger. It's failed across the board.
It's amazing. You have Tulsi Gabbard. I remembered this, and I said I wanted to play this because Tulsi Gabbard back in February was asked about sanctions, these Russian sanctions. And I think we were on this show. We're not economists either. We're simple journalists. We're simple journalists, right? But we were looking at this saying this is not going to hurt him at all. This is not going to hurt him. Tulsi Gabbard said this, and I'm going to play this. She got vilified by Democrats for saying this. This was February. Watch this.
These sanctions don't work, whether they were put in before or now or later. These sanctions don't work. What we do know is that they will increase suffering and hardship for the American people. And this is the whole problem with the Biden administration. They are so focused on how do we punish Putin that they don't care and are not focused on what is actually in the best interests of the American people. So when Biden stands there and looks directly into the camera and says, defending freedom will cost us, what he really should be saying is looking directly into the American people's eyes and saying, this will cost you, because these sanctions are not going to cost him or Kamala Harris or the power elite in this country, even the power elite in Russia. It is the people who will suffer, the American people, the Russian people, people here at home working hard every single day, facing those drastically increasing prices at the gas pump, facing increasing costs at the supermarket, impacting our supply chain. The hardships that people are dealing with every day now, with Biden's sanctions plan, we're only going to see that continuing to get worse.
Oh, Kamala mocked her for that.
Yeah.
There was a number of people that said, sorry, Tulsi, you don't know what you're talking about.
But you don't have to be an economist to be able to commiserate with how much this is hurting all of us, right? We have 3 children. But I think that it's good to have your perspective, Scott, because we are being asked to swallow a political reason for the reason that we are feeling this pain. And it may not be true. And if it's not true, then why are we suffering, right? If it were some kind of noble cause, that might be one thing, but it doesn't feel like that to us. In fact, for the first time, I actually dragged Clayton to the grocery store today, and our bill was much higher than it normally is. And I said, I don't know if that's inflation or if that's the bring your husband tax. Because Clayton always loads the cart with things that I would not buy.
Yeah.
So
it's like when we go to Costco, or whatever. It's like, well, I need a flat screen television this afternoon.
He found a pallet of peanut butter because he's like, this stuff may run out. I'm worried about it. That was really expensive. So he bought a dozen.
I'm gonna blame it on Putin. It was Putin's.
Also, I can attest all the sriracha is out. So that story tracks.
Yeah.
Blame it on Putin. You're in good company. But let me put it this way. Tulsi Gabbard is the only political candidate in the last 20 years who I have her T-shirt. I contributed to her. I think highly of her. And I'm not a political kind of guy. I don't normally do this. I follow it, but I keep it in close. I don't wear it on my sleeve. I just think she's articulate. I think she's intelligent. She's not perfect. No one is. But she means well. She's smart. And when a smart person means well, good things tend to happen. So, she speaks and look, history has proven her 100% correct. Mm-hmm. And yet No one's giving her any credit. No one's saying, "Hey, Tulsi, you are," but I mean, in the mainstream. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, um, the fact that Kamala Harris can vilify Tulsi Gabbard and not be vilified by the American people as a result just speaks of where we're at today in terms of American domestic politics, where literally we have the Biden-Harris team destroying the country as we speak, and the American people are still ignorant enough to largely buy into, oh, it's Putin's fault, it's the Putin tactic. And one of the reasons is they don't know Putin. They don't know Russia. They don't know Russian history. They don't know modern Russian history. They don't know,
Yes, yeah.
contemporary Russian history. You know who does? Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. She was the one who was very, very critical and talking about what had happened with the biolabs, and which she was vilified for that. So she's been vilified time and time again. She's had her Twitter account shut down. She's, I think one of her social media accounts taken down. I might have been Twitter. I think maybe it was her YouTube channel. Anyway, she's also, when she speaks the truth, that you're onto something when some of these big tech oligarchs start taking down your social media. So final thought on inflation here. So was Tulsi right? Take a look at this new Post poll. 3 in 4 Americans say it would be difficult to afford rent in their neighborhood if they had to move. High rents, high energy prices, the food index is up, shelter was up.
Yes.
Everything across the board is up. And by the way, here's President Biden. Here's President Biden with his plan to combat the Putin price hike. Here's what he had to say about his plan. Here's Biden's plan. Listen.
It will bring down prices. But there's more. There's more than one way to solve this problem. We're continuing working to bring down food prices and gas prices and save families' money by dealing with other items.
So we're going to save families' mother and money.
Okay.
I guess that's the way to do it.
I mean, look, you guys, it's June. You still can plant things,
Here
right?
we go.
I know. I'm always about growing your own food. If you can find a way, find a little plot of soil to plant your own food, because the grocery store is not going to be a friendly place for us for the foreseeable future. So take control of your own food supply to the best of your ability.
That's right. Well, we've got a ton more news to get to. We want to get Scott's perspective on the latest in Ukraine, the weapons, the need for additional weapons in Ukraine. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to look at the latest on the blame game coming up here. Let's put up the rundown, show people what we got coming up here. We're going to talk about, there we go. We got Ukraine on weapons. We're going to talk about the blame game. We're going to look at Saudi oil and the CIA versus Assange. All right, our friends over at Indeed, let me tell you about Indeed. So if you're looking for your company's next hire, you want them to have a great problem-solving skills and think like an entrepreneur. The thing that you need help with the most is hiring. How do you find them? It's easy. You need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Find great talent faster through time-saving tools like Indeed's Instant Match assessments and their virtual interviews. With Instant Match, you get over 80% of employers get qualified candidates right away whose resumes match their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed's data. So with virtual interviews, it's incredible how you're able to hire right there. And it saves you time, it saves you money. You can message, schedule, and interview top talent seamlessly, all in one place. It saves you the headaches. Interview virtually with no downloads, plugins, or purchases. You can do it all in one place with Indeed. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you can pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is unbelievably powerful hiring partner, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest 2019. So here's how you're going to get a $75 job credit. Sign up for Indeed now. Get a $75 credit towards your first sponsored job. Plus earn up to $500 extra in sponsored job credits with Indeed's virtual interviews. Visit Indeed.com/invest to learn more. Claim your credits at Indeed.com/invest. Indeed.com/invest. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, if you're just joining us, Scott Ritter is here. He is the former Marine, former UN weapons inspector, who was the person who told the world, hey, there are no weapons of mass destruction, and of course resigned in protest over the direction that his government was taking, and now has spent the last 20 or so years telling the truth and bringing awareness to the lies that really come out of Washington. He's done an amazing job. You can follow him on Telegram because they shut down his Twitter account because he was telling the truth over there. So you can follow him on Telegram, at Scott Ritter on Telegram. Go follow his great work over there. So, Scott, we wanted to get your take on what's unfolding in Ukraine today. So this was the headline. I mean, the Wall Street Journal spackled this all over the front page of their website today with a massive, almost like photo shoot. It's almost like they hired, what is her name, Ann Geddes, to go do photos of these.
It's very photojournalistic.
Yeah, so these are the guys here. Take a look at your screen. This is Ukraine fears defeat in East without surge in military aid, and it's all of these, photos of what's of how they're suffering right now. And European leaders, of course, are about to meet in Brussels. And they have a full laundry list of the equipment that they want to be able to get shipped there right now. Take a look at the list. This is what this is the advisor to. Let me see if I have his name right. This is the advisor to Zelensky. So I'm going to put this up on the screen, Scott. And I want you to take. Being straightforward, this is what the advisor to Zelensky said. To end the war, we need heavy weapons parity, 1,000 howitzers, 300 MLRS, 500 tanks, 2,000 armored vehicles, 1,000 drones. That's what he's hoping to get from the meeting on June 15th, just a few days from now. Scott, what's your take on this? They need weapons. That's the only reason they're losing. I guess we haven't sent them enough.
Well, this is something I've been pointing out from day one. The Ukrainians started with one of the largest armies in Europe, one of the most well-equipped armies in Europe. And they're fighting another very large army, very well-equipped army. And now we come down to just the brutality of military math. And it's about death and destruction. You're killing people and you're destroying equipment. And the side that can do it more efficiently than the other will win. And Russia is very efficient in killing Ukrainians and destroying Ukrainian equipment. And there comes a point in time where, and the other thing about it is, as long as there's relative parity, you're grinding down and it's a slower process. But at some point in time, you're just going to start grinding it down quicker, and then it devolves rapidly. And that's what we're seeing right now is rapid devolution of Ukrainian capability.
I'm sorry. So we don't know anything about military strategy, but we do know about media spin on military strategy. So it seemed like around February, we were told Ukraine, they can do this. They're scrappy. They are going to rise up and push back Russia, and this will be an easy get. And now we're being told the exact opposite. In fact, this Wall Street Journal piece says that Ukrainian forces only have one artillery piece per 10 to 20 Russians on the front lines. That math does not work out for a win, right? That a win does not make. So what did it start a bit more with what you call parity, and then now it looks like the writing is on the wall? Or has that always been the way, and the Western media was always leading with what it wanted?
Well, the Western media has always led with what it wanted. First of all, it never started with parity. It actually started with a 3-to-1 advantage on the part of the Ukrainians.
Wow. Wow.
The Russians came in with say 200,000 troops, and Ukraine, had 600,000 available. Ukraine had numerical superiority, et cetera. What Russia brought to bear was strategic and operational competence. They were able to shape the battlefield very effectively. In the first phase of the operation, say the first month of the operation, pin down large numbers of Ukrainian forces, preventing them from reinforcing critical sectors, and then interdicting lines of communication, destroying ammunition dumps, destroying fuel depots, destroying lines of communication, interdicting command and control. And all of this leads to a degradation of combat effectiveness on the part of the Ukrainians. And meanwhile, the Russians are grinding it out on the battlefield. And so when they shifted to phase 2, they had already shaped the battlefield the way they wanted it. They had the Ukrainians disposed on the battlefield where they wanted them. And then they got into the dirty business of killing. I mean, I don't mean to be too blunt here, but that's what war is about. It's not glorious. It's not heroic. It's disgusting, death and destruction of the worst kind. I mean, they showed that photograph of that steely-eyed, Ukrainian tape. Come on, tell the truth. Show his burned out corpse, thrown out of the tank, charred, blown into pieces, because that's what he's going to look like in a day or two. That's what hundreds of Ukrainians are looking like every day. It's not, this isn't Saving Private Ryan where a guy clutches his shoulder and goes down. This is bodies getting blown up. I mean, people need to know this. It isn't pretty. It's ugly. It's disgusting. It stinks. That's war, and the Russians are waging it more brutally effective than the Ukrainians can sustain it. And the inevitability of Ukraine's defeat has been on the page since day one when we saw the superiority of the Russian plan. The West didn't understand the Russian plan. They said, "Oh my God, they're trying to capture Kiev." Russia was never trying to capture Kiev. Russia came in with 40,000 troops and pinned down 60,000 troops. That's called using your brain. Russia never tried to take Odessa. They floated 10,000 troops off the coast, kept 40,000 troops pinned in place. They forced reserves instead of going to the east to the Donbass. Reserves got diverted to Kiev and to Odessa. And that's how Russia shaped this battlefield so that they could achieve this impressive victory with 1/3 the troops that Ukraine has. And it's been very impressive. And any military expert, not the idiots that get paid money by Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, they all have 3-4 stars on their shoulder, but they stopped being military professionals the moment they took the check from the media corporations, because their job isn't to provide expert military advice. Their job is to echo a predisposed conclusion that the media has already reached. We are here to tell you about the great Ukrainian victory. Lieutenant General Mark Herling, please tell us the great military victory.
Yes.
Ukraine's achieving a great military victory. None of it's true. None of it's true. And the first, if somebody like me comes up and says, whoa, time out. I wrote a 16-thread tweet that explained what was going on at the end of phase one. And that got like 3 million impacts or whatever the term is. I think that scared the heck out of Twitter, because they went, well, we got to shut this thing down because somebody's putting out a narrative that is different than Herling. Well, guess what, Herling? Look at the shopping list that the Ukrainians just put out. It's proof positive that they're getting their butts kicked, because if you need 1,000 pieces of artillery, that means you lost 1,000 pieces of artillery. If you need 500 tanks, that means you've lost 500 tanks. That's just the hard, cold fact. And it's not just tanks and artillery. Every piece of equipment that's there, that's human life.
Yeah.
So for every tank going down, that's 3 to 4 lives. For every artillery piece, that's 5 to 6 lives. So if they've lost 1,000 artillery pieces, that's 5,000 to 6,000 guys dead. If they've lost 500 tanks, multiply that by 3, that's 1,500 dead. And then there's the infantry, there's the logistics, there are all the other dead people out there. Ukrainians are getting slaughtered. Probably right now they've admitted that it's around 200 dead a day.
Yes.
I'll tell you right now that number's closer to 600 to 800 dead a day. 600 to 800 guys dead.
You mentioned some of the talking heads on TV, and it's amazing because, we worked in that world. I mean, I was in mainstream media for 20 years, Natalie as well, and we got out of the belly of that beast. But I want to play this soundbite because you might know this person, and I don't mean to throw this person under the bus, but this just speaks to exactly what you just said. So they're telling us we're losing. There's no way, no amount of money or weapons is going to turn this tide. But still, the military-industrial complex is beating that drum. Take a listen to Dan Hoffman, ex-CIA.
What do you make of this? Do we need to give more weapons?
Yeah, we do, absolutely. We've got to keep Ukraine in the fight. Vladimir Putin is trying to leverage every bit of pressure he can on Ukraine and on the West. He's using food, weaponizing food to try to induce the West to reduce our support to Ukraine. But we've got to keep Ukraine in the fight. That's the only way that we can reach a resolution that protects not only Ukraine, but our NATO allies, especially on the borders of Russia.
Now, that seems very fear-mongering, but I want to sort of reframe that for you to respond to with a question that we see a lot in our chat is, well, then what were we as Americans supposed to do? Just let Putin come in and take this region to himself? Can you sort of respond to that? I mean, there's the one side that's like, hey, we just need to come in and keep control of, the firepower. And then there's the other argument, which is, What did we really need to do here?
Yeah, let me just start off by saying that Dan Hoffman's not a military expert. Dan Hoffman's not an intelligence analyst. Dan Hoffman was a CIA case officer. When I see Dan Hoffman, all I see is compromised espionage attempts, and he and his fellow spies being kicked out of Moscow because they stink at what they do. And to have him
Okay.
sitting there talking about military stuff is absurd. So let's push Dan Hoffman aside. And Dan, if you have a problem with that, debate anytime, anywhere. I know your record, you know mine. It's an easy one. You lose. I don't mean, I'm normally not this aggressive, but I have no use for the CIA today, especially those people who were in the Russian desk, because they're the ones who have created this stupidity about Putin and Russia. They have this spy, and they never learned who they were spying against. That's why they got beat. They were all kicked out because they got caught. But now we come to your question. What were we supposed to do? Well, I don't know. What I would advise every American to do is go visit a cemetery, a World War II cemetery, and kneel at the graves of the men and who lost their lives on in the European theater.
I want to take a look at your article that you just released today, specifically on using Russians as cannon fodder, basically. Maybe I have that phrased wrong, but this is your piece today that you wrote on the U.S. is trying to use Ukraine as a test lab for its drones, a move Russia is unlikely to forget. So the next stage in this war.
I mean, the MQ-1C Gray Eagle drone was developed during the global war on terrorism. It was a great weapon used against, the Taliban, goat herders, wedding parties, Iraqi civilians, in this in this very permissive environment where it could fly around without fear of anything. But they've recognized, the United States has recognized that if you try and use this weapon against a peer level opponent like Russia or China, it's going to be shot down. And so they're in the process now of spending hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe even billions of dollars, trying to upgrade the Gray Eagle so that it has a relevant role to play on the modern battlefield. Now, why then would the United States send 4 Gray Eagles to Ukraine if they know that the Gray Eagle, as designed and used, will not survive 1 second on the modern battlefield in Ukraine, unless they're seeking to use these 4 as a test bed to test out new technologies, new techniques, new procedures, which means that Ukraine has become a research and development playground. And that's fine if you're only using computers and theory. But this is a playground where Ukrainians and Russians are in a life and death struggle. And it's a struggle that Ukrainians are being slaughtered at a rate of 20-1 to the Russians, but Russians are still dying. So you're bringing in a tool whose sole purpose is to kill Russians in a war where killing Russians will not change the outcome. How brutally cynical can you be to do that?
Yes.
I would encourage everyone to read this piece. I'll make sure it's linked up in the description that Scott wrote today on the drones. I want to move on, though, and I want to talk about this blame game right now that is happening, because you're starting to see, I think, the groundwork being laid in Ukraine and Western leaders are starting to do this. And I want to get Scott's take on all of this. So Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector, the man who told the world, there are no weapons of mass destruction where you think there are, and we're not going to get into a war for that reason. So Scott, I want to get your take on this. So we saw on Friday night, let me just sort of set the stage for this. President Biden was at a Democratic fundraiser where he basically let slip that, we were telling him stuff about Putin for a while, and Zelensky just didn't want to hear it. Here's the Newsweek headline. Ukraine slams Biden's comments on Zelensky not heeding warnings, calls them absurd. Here's the Newsweek piece. And so you want to provide some more context here on this?
Well, I mean, I think this is what we've been wondering is this partnership between Ukraine and Western leaders, where Zelensky was propped up as the more popular guy, that we needed to sort of float him up as a celebrity. Is it breaking, right? And so if there's sort of a spat between these Western leaders and enough to make public comments, well, then does that mean that there is going to be a drying up of the spigot? Just tomorrow, European leaders will meet, and they also are quite divided over whether or not to continue to support Ukraine or not. Italy, Hungary, these nations have already said, we want to see an end to this. We don't want to continue to funnel money into this. So what now? So if you want to maybe give us some background on when it looks like the writing is on the wall, do you turn your back on the guy who was your time cover model? Does this seem sort of par for the course?
Time cover model.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, we look. Let's start with build on that. Zelensky has been built up as the modern day equivalent of Winston Churchill, a brave leader. We will fight them on the beaches. We will fight them in the cities. We will fight them here and there and everywhere. Or King Leonidas with the 300 at Thermopylae, standing in the face of the immortals. None of that's true. But I will say this: that Biden, the U.S. intelligence community had been saying since November of last year that a Russian invasion of Ukraine was imminent. Imminent defined what, 3-4 days? It was imminent every day, imminent. And then at the same time, they said the reason why we're releasing this information is to let the Russians know that we know what they're up to, and maybe that'll help deter them from attacking. At the same time, we were putting in place these these massive sanctions, which were also supposed to deter them from attacking. So the purpose of the United States was not to empower Ukraine to resist a Russian invasion. The purpose of the United States in their policy was to seek to intimidate Russia to not attack, while we were at the same time pursuing the same policies with Ukraine that were prompting Russia to be concerned within the fight. So it's just literally the definition of incompetence. And the Ukrainians have every right to say, we're a little peeved because, you guys knew this was coming. We knew it was coming. And yet, what did you do to support us? You provided us with javelins and stingers up front, but we really needed the heavy weapons. And now that we're losing, you're being spare with the provision of the weapons we need. Thank you very much for the 100 artillery tubes, but we need 1,000. Thank you very much for the 200 tanks, but we need 500. And we need it now, or else we're going to lose this war. And if I were Zelensky, I'd be a little nervous when, remember, Mark Miley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, testified for Congress that he thought Kiev was going to fall within 5 days. So if the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff thinks Kiev is going to fall to Russia within 5 days, that doesn't tell you that the United States has much hope for Ukraine surviving. So the fact that Ukraine has survived has nothing to do with American policy and everything to do with the tenacity of the Ukrainian soldier. I will never denigrate the heroism of your average Ukrainian soldier. I mean, they're dying in large numbers, but those guys are at the front. They're fighting, they're hooking and jabbing, they're paying the price, and they're the only reason why Russia hasn't rolled over that pathetic little country, or big country. But it's not about America providing support. And I think Europe's recognizing that this is a lost cause, that literally the longer this fight goes on, the worst thing in the world for Europe is happening, the empowerment of Russia. Remember, European policy was, we're going to drag this war out so that Russia is weakened to the extent that they will never again try to do something like this. But the exact opposite is happening.
Yes.
Russia is winning so decisively that one would think that Russia now has a template for how to proceed on to the next problem. I don't think Putin's that immature, but from a European standpoint, they're getting the exact opposite result than what they thought they were getting up front.
So can I ask you, is there an opportunity now for Western leaders to actually establish peace right now? The way that Italy and Hungary are calling for a ceasefire, is there an opportunity for the United States to say, like, look, what you want to win this war is not coming. We gave you $41 billion. That's the end of it. Unless there's some money we can sort of slide under in weapons contracts. But otherwise, is it really down to the last Ukrainian? That's the only way this ends? Or is there an opportunity still for peace at this point?
Look, to be a leader, people, you got to have followers. So who is America, who is Europe leading when they say we want a ceasefire? Are they leading the Ukrainians? I don't think the Ukrainians are responding to them. The suggestion is that they are going to give Russia an off-ramp by saying, see, Russia's not listening to them. I mean, for the longest time, Shoigu, the defense minister, wouldn't even pick up the phone when Lloyd Austin called because he didn't care. America had nothing to bring to the table. America today has nothing to bring to the table. I'll say it one more time. Russia has paid too high of a price to quit at this point. This war will end when Russia wants it to end, not anybody else. They don't care about Joe Biden. They don't care about Jan Stoltenberg. They don't care about any of these pathetic little European leaders. Too many Russians have died. All they care about now is winning the war on the terms that Russia will dictate to whoever is in charge of Ukraine when Ukraine makes the decision that it's time to surrender. The West will have nothing to do with this.
So will the West? What sort of egg will be on the face of Western leaders at this point, and will they be willing to accept it? Because look, this is a proxy regime. I'm sorry, this is a puppet regime installed in 2014. A few years ago, I think in 2015 or 2014, you had John McCain, Senator John McCain. You had Senator Lindsey Graham standing there. Telling those leaders this is, I think, before Zelensky's time, telling them we're going to go back to Washington. We're going to stand with you to end the Russian aggression. We're going to stop Russia. This is what we're going to do. You have our full support. It seems like that's not the case anymore. And what would be left if it is the case? I just don't. What is the end game for President Biden at this point and NATO leaders?
Well, this is going to look. In August of 2021. NATO and the United States suffered one of the greatest embarrassments in modern history, the retreat from Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And that left a huge amount of egg on everybody's face. And it left Europe to say, what kind of friend, what kind of supporter, what kind of ally is the United States? So the whole purpose of what's been going on in Europe right now with Ukraine and this chest thumping is the United States seeking to reassert its legitimacy and its credibility as the leader of NATO, and in doing so, reform NATO into this solid alliance against the common enemy, Russia. And if a month ago, NATO was buying into its own propaganda. Jan Stoltenberg was speaking proudly. NATO was talking about this great summit we're going to have in June. Well, June's going to be more like it's going to be a wake. It's not going to be a celebration. It's a wake. It's a wake for NATO. NATO's dying. NATO's dead. Its credibility. The egg on the face this time, NATO can't recover from this because this is NATO standing up against the big dog. You don't ever want to go in and fight the big dog. You'd always like to just leave the two dogs growling, because when you fight the big dog, one of the big dogs is going to win. It's going to be decisive. And right now what we're seeing is a decisive Russian victory over the NATO big dog. And NATO can't recover from that. I'm not saying it's going to disband in June, but I think the June summit is going to be far more chaotic than they think. And, when alliances start to crack, other issues come out. For instance, Turkey right now is talking about going to war against Greece. Right. That's a NATO ally. And you have Hungary, thumbing its nose at Poland. And so the fractures are starting to show. And I don't think this is going to be this grand unifying moment. I think this is going to be Joe Biden coming in with the fire brigade, trying to put out fires, and Jan Stoltenberg trying to spin this into something that looks other than the decisive defeat that NATO is suffering. Because never forget, this is a proxy war. NATO is fighting Russia using the Ukrainian proxy, and Russia's winning decisively.
I want to point out a recent content analysis that showed that during the inception of the Iraq War, only 10% of cable news pundits advocated for peace. And the other 90% were all in bloodshed, bloodthirst, right? And so when you have a voice on that says, don't do this, right? This is what it looks like. I just want to point that out to our audiences, that talking to you is the exact opposite narrative that we have seen as we've been watching cable news, saying Ukraine will win, let's keep sending guns, right? And so it's extremely uncomfortable, I think, for those of us who are sort of used to the mindless cable news narrative, to think about lives lost of people who are loved by somebody's son, right? Somebody's dad, those kind of things. That's just not something that we're allowed to think about. We continue to, the words of Jean Baudrillard continue to ring true in his book, The Gulf War Did Not Take Place, because it's put away from us at a comfortable arm's distance. All we have to feel right now is more expensive peanut butter, right?
Right.
But to actually think about this yeah, I'm not finding it digestible, but I'm finding it important. So thank you for that. That's all I had to say. You can say something else now.
I didn't know if that was
you want.
No, I like that. So, I guess, the blame game continues. We're going to continue to see, I think, more of this over the next few weeks as this grind down continues. But all eyes on what happens on June 15th in Brussels. We'll see if they get this money. They'll see if they get these weapons. It will be really interesting to see if they get this shopping list of weapons that they're wanting in Ukraine. Or if the West has said, you know what, we're going to reassess the situation. We're going to come up with a different idea. We're going to push for peace. I think I will fall out of my chair if that actually happens. We got more news to get to. Scott Ritter is here. He's a former UN weapons inspector who told the world, hey, weapons of mass destruction that you're going to go and kill thousands, millions of people over, yeah, they don't have them. They don't have them. And so you're going to continue to do this. I'm not going to play your game. And he's been silenced. He's been taken off Twitter. He's had, he's not been able to share as much as he can. But he's been able to be here on our show, and I'm thrilled about that. He's on Telegram, so you can go follow him on Telegram. He does great content over there. That's how I learned about his great drone piece that he wrote today, specifically on the new drones. So go there. It's right on the bottom of the screen, Scott Ritter on Telegram, right underneath there. So go check that out. I want to talk about this. So let's talk about Saudi Arabia, shall we? Because, President Biden can't seem to answer the question. Is he going to Saudi Arabia or is he not going to Saudi Arabia? And so this was President Biden asked the very question. We have an oil problem, right? Which he blames on Vladimir Putin, of course, and not even talking about the sanctions piece, but it's all Putin's fault. Never mind the sanctions that you put in place against Russia. But here he was asked the question, are you going to Saudi Arabia? Because you were supposed to go last week. Are you going in anytime soon? Watch him answer the question and say, no, he's not going, and then completely flip-flop 20 seconds later. Watch.
Have you decided, sir, whether to go to Saudi Arabia?
No, not yet.
What would be the holding up the decision at this point? Are there commitments you're waiting for from the Saudis or on the negotiations over peace?
No. The commitments from the Saudis don't relate to anything having to do with energy. It happens to be a larger meeting taking place in Saudi Arabia. That's the reason I'm going. And it has to do with national security for them, for Israelis. I have a program. Anyway, it has to do with much larger issues than having to do with the energy.
Scott, that's...
So you're not going, but you're going for these reasons.
Right. So you're telling me there's a chance that you're going. Scott, I mean, so on the one hand, he says, no, I'm not going. He was emphatic. No, I'm not going. I'm not going. Oh, I see what you mean. Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I'm going, but it has nothing to do with oil. It's about other things, and maybe oil will come up. What is your take on the U.S. position right now as it relates to Saudi Arabia and his response?
Well, I believe that Biden was intending to go to Saudi Arabia, and it became clear that Saudi Arabia wasn't going to provide Biden with the results that he wanted, which namely would be an increase in oil. Saudi Arabia would be insane to increase the production of oil at this time. They're getting windfall profits that are upping their coffers. So why would you slit your own throat economically to help out an unreliable regional partner, which is what the United States has become? That's the important part of phase two, because Biden wants to go to Saudi Arabia to be part of this larger dialogue of cobbling together a new regional reality that stands up against a resurgent Iran. I mean, we're looking at the collapse of the JCPOA nuclear, the Iran nuclear deal. Trump withdrew. Biden promised to come back in, but he's not, because he doesn't really want to go back in. But now he needs Iranian oil, but it's too late. So he has to come and help cobble together this growing alliance between Egypt, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf Arab states. And so that's what he's looking to do. He claims it has nothing to do with energy, and he's right, because the Saudis simply refused to pick up the phone on that one. They said, we're not talking about oil, buddy. We got our own energy policy. We got our own economic reality here. If you want to come and talk about, bettering relations with Israel, be our guest, but we're not going to talk energy with you.
So the United States can sort of frame it as if like, oh, we don't really approve of talking to them anyway, right? So you can put this in the shadow of this PGA tournament news last week where 17 players who played in the LIV Golf Invitational Series, which was Saudi-backed, lost their position on the PGA Tour. They were already there when they received letters saying, because you participated in this tournament, now you're ineligible for playing any other future PGA tournament games. But the players said they never received any notice ahead of time. So it feels like, we're all now being put on notice like, oh no, it's us that doesn't want them, right? It feels a bit like a jealous move.
And Glenn Greenwald tweeted this today. He said, I continue to find it completely baffling how people are so outraged that a bunch of golfers are participating in a tour funded by Saudi money when it's their own governments that prop up the Saudi regime with weapons, intel, and cash. The latter seems a bit more significant. But this is the thing, this is the thing, Scott, that, of course, mainstream media they're all over Phil Mickelson for going here. And I can't believe it. Here's Glenn Greenwald, another one. It says, yes, Phil Mickelson or whoever is playing in a golf tournament financed by Saudis. But Joe Biden, the U.S. president, not a golfer, is doing this with the Saudis as the U.K. government, a lot more than playing golf for them. There'd be no Saudi regime without the United States and the United Kingdom. What do you think about that? I mean, so it seems like this is how the media plays it, right? They'd rather focus on the golf stars than the real story here.
Yeah, I like. First of all, I play golf. I love golf. Used to be pretty good at it. I will tell you this. I've been to a lot of these big name country clubs. And if you don't think it's about American corporate money, American corporate power, that the PGA isn't a reflection of the American corporate identity, which includes Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, other military industrial corporations of that nature. And what I'm trying to get at is PGA money isn't clean. Okay, let's stop playing. Let's stop pretending. And PGA money isn't apolitical. Have you ever gone to the Ryder Cup and taken a look at the chanting USA, USA, as if we're feeding the world by playing a game of golf? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Saudis are noble and that their money is clean. It's not, and they're not. But it's a game. It's a game played for money. And the money that's been backing golf from the very beginning has never been clean. Never. If you think U.S. golf money is clean, you don't know anything about how the role golf plays in corporate America today. And Glenn Greenwald is 100% correct. The hypocrisy to say that Saudi Arabia can't pay golfers, not just golfers. Saudi Arabia can't underwrite a F1, Formula One race. They can't do this sport. They can't do that sport. They can't pretend to be cultured. They can't buy art. They can't do anything because they're a bad regime. They've been cutting off heads for ever since we've had diplomatic relations with them, and never seemed to bother too many Americans. But
and killing journalists, and killing American journalists, and lying about it.
Yeah, Khashoggi. That's the. Again, I just find it hypocrisy. Okay, yes, let's stand up. Let's put our foot down. You killed Khashoggi. That's it. Wait a minute. The Israelis just shot an American citizen. We're not going to talk about that. Oh, wait a minute. We've got Julian Assange, and we're not going to talk about that. But man, you butchered Khashoggi because it was done by the Saudis. We suddenly care about journalists. I care about Khashoggi. I'm not trying to minimize his death or somehow trivialize that. It's horrible, and the Saudis should be asked to pay a price for this. But let's not pretend that the Saudis are the only ones who kill journalists. The Israelis do it. We do it. Others do it. We arrest them. So I just find it troublesome that Saudi Arabia is put up there as the perpetual bad guy, while, as Glenn Greenwald said, we're propping them up. Right. There wouldn't be a Saudi Arabia if it weren't for the United States and the United Kingdom. So we prop them up to do what? Condemn them? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think this speaks to woke politics, and we could go down that rabbit hole, but we won't today.
No.
Normally we do, and I'm going to refrain myself.
No, we got to be respectful of Scott's time. Scott has a meeting in about 27 minutes, so I want to make sure that we get Scott out of here on time. So let's move on. I want to talk about the CIA story. So as you know, the United States is trying to extradite Julian Assange from the United Kingdom, and he has been behind lock and key now for a number of years. He suffered a stroke.
So we are still waiting for final word on whether or not the United Kingdom will comply with the United States' request to extradite Julian Assange. Meanwhile, this is an interesting tidbit. Recently, the wife of Julian Assange posted it was a bit of a memoir of what it's like going through raising a family while your husband has this how shall I put it? Like an uncertain future, right? That's very dangerous for him, not knowing if every moment is your last. She pointed this out, and we had not previously known this, but we looked into it, and it seems to be true. According to ABC Spain, Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, has been deposed by a Spanish court to explain an alleged U.S. government plot to assassinate WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange during the Trump administration. So what this looks like is that a Spanish company was looking into whether or not the United States was spying on Assange while he was at certain embassies. The embassy was, which one? Ecuadorian? The Ecuadorian embassy in London. The Spanish courts got wind of it, and now they are asking for information on exactly what the United States was playing at here, right? So they are, whether Pompeo complies with this request or not is anyone's game. I'm going to bet that he doesn't. But this is extremely interesting, don't you think, Scott?
Well, it's interesting in a number of ways. Yeah, a Spanish, I think we know as a statement of fact that a Spanish security firm was tasked by the CIA with spying on Julian Assange while he was holed up at the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK. I think some video has actually been released that there was a massive breach of security of some sort, but this has become public knowledge. Less so are the reports that the CIA was planning on killing Assange in London. And some of the stories I've read are just fantastic. What I mean by that is not in a good way, just like, what the heck?
Like wild.
You really want the Dan Hoffmans of the world running an assassination team in London? No. So sometimes some of what I've read is just so off the map. I mean, CIA hit squad in London without the British government's approval. It doesn't seem real to me. It doesn't seem realistic. It's overplayed. But this, again, was the Trump administration. This was Mike Pompeo, the man who laughed about, I was the director of the CIA. We lied, we cheated, we stole. That's what we did. That's what we do. Maybe, Mike, but we don't brag about it.
Well, we actually have that clip. I mean, let's play that clip. Here is Mike Pompeo, waiting for applause because he's so proud of this. We'll play a portion of this.
With an extremely long tie. That's not how you wear those.
Maybe you do here at Texas A&M, but I think too many Americans don't understand how blessed we are. There are many, many tough places out there. Having said that, not all tough places are the same. They each present a different set of challenges. It reminds me, you would know this this is a bit of an aside, but in terms of how you think about problem sets, when I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses.
Who's clapping for that?
Yeah, you guys are liars. You're so happy about that. And of course, Scott, he talked about, Edward Snowden, talked about Julian Assange, some of what they considered to be some of his, it's like he had a personal grudge. Like he couldn't believe that this happened to the CIA and the NSA.
No, I have huge problems with this. I was never a CIA employee, but I worked very closely with the CIA on a number of occasions over the course of many, many years. And when you say you lie, you cheat, you steal. Look, he's right. We live in a difficult world, and sometimes you've got to employ tools of the trade. So you aren't going to tell the Russians up front, hi, I'm here to break into that house there, into that safe on the third floor and remove plants. You're going to lie. I'm here to redecorate this home, or whatever. You can cheat, you can steal, but you never do that to the American people. You never do that to the American public. You have to be honest with yourself. You don't lie to yourself. You don't lie to your employers. You don't lie to the American people. You don't cheat yourself, your employers, the American people, and you don't steal from yourself. Pompeo, on the other hand, he in the agency that he ran, lied to the American people, is stolen from the American people, and they've been cheating the American people, and they don't deserve to be around as an agency anymore. And then, believe me, this is somebody who at one time thought the CIA was a necessary evil for the United States. No, when you deceive your own country, when you deceive your own people, when you deceive the government that's supposed to be providing oversight over you, then you're no longer an American asset. You operate to the detriment of the United States. And Mike Pompeo and his agency should be relegated to the trash bin of history.
What do you think happens then to Julian Assange? You know this organization well, you know what's likely to happen here. So I'm curious your take on if he is extradited, what happens to Julian Assange in the United States?
Well, I mean, what we've seen in recent Supreme Court precedent reinforces this is the total subservience of the American justice system to the national security establishment. So, Julian Assange has been presented as a threat to national security. This really should be a case that would be dismissed on day one, meaning that the moment Assange appears before first American judge, a competent lawyer presents this as a freedom of speech issue. This is, that if Assange was a New York Times reporter, this would never happen. Constitution applies, and it should be thrown out. But that's not what will happen. Assange will disappear into, the dark maze of prisons. He's classified as a high risk, even though he's a journalist, and he's going to probably die in American prison. We kill people in American prison. I don't think the American people understand what happens in American prisons. He will not be treated well. He will not be singled out for good treatment. He will be abused medically, psychologically, physically, and he will die.
And then while all of this is happening, I think Americans have forgotten with the war in Ukraine, because you touched on this, but the CIA collecting data about you talk about this was a story that happened and literally got shuffled to the back pages, and no one's even talking about it. But right as the war in Ukraine was breaking out, we had the huge revelation, of course, that the CIA was actually spying on Americans, right? I mean, we already knew this with the NSA, but that the CIA is collecting data about you. To your point, this is
without any proper permissions, going around court orders and warrants on a regular basis as part of their protocol, and flagging things that were saying, we need this, but we can't be bothered to get permission, so we'll go around it. And there was protocol for it. Has been, continues to be.
Yeah, again, this is the U.S. intelligence community ever since the 9/11 and the enactment of the Patriot Act, which basically gave them carte blanche to do anything they wanted at any time. There's been some pushback, but not much. And the pushback only comes when they're caught, hand in the cookie jar. Oh, yeah, one cookie, but no one's talking about the fact they're going for the whole cookie jar. We have an intelligence community. We have a national security establishment that's at war with the American people. That's at war with the United States Constitution. They view the Constitution as an impediment, not as something that needs to be defended, but something that impedes them from being able to do their job as they deem necessary, not as the civilian leadership over them deems necessary. So again, I think that the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, and just about every other intelligence organization needs to be put on a permanent pause, dissolved, and we need to start from scratch, where people appreciate the rule of law, appreciate the Constitution, and appreciate what it means to defend Americans. And you don't defend Americans by spying on Americans.
Yeah, amen to that. and all of Scott's great work. Scott, I want to thank you for joining us here on the show today. And you can tell all of us where to go and find you. I know you're over on Telegram. What do you post over there? Can you tell us, our audience, a little bit about what you post over there on Telegram?
Well, I write for a number of outlets, and so RT is the big one, and that's got me in a lot of trouble with with the American. So the way they put up a little warning that says, "Warning: you could be brainwashed by Putin if you read this." No, Putin didn't write it; I wrote it. Consortium News is another one. They've come under attack lately. I write for an outlet called Energy Intelligence Group, and I publish some pieces there. Sometimes I write for Global Times, a Chinese outlet. God, the communist Chinese too, and anywhere else that'll publish me. So whenever I publish something, I'll put it on the Telegram page. And when I do podcasts, for instance, like this one, when you provide me the link, I'll be linking it to the page as well. So I try, and anytime I say something or write something, I try and put it on the Telegram page so people can read it if they want to, watch it if they want to. I don't mean to be, I don't care if you read it or watch it. I don't. I'm happy if you do, but I do it because I want to do it. I'm not doing it because someone's telling me to do it. I feel like this is a very important time we live in, and I have a voice that can be shared. Trust me, I wouldn't be writing about things that I have no interest in. I have a deep passion for the subjects that I write in. I feel like I can add something to the conversation. And if people are interested in reading what I have to write or hearing what I have to say, go to the Telegram page, and you'll have full access to what goes on inside this.
Can I just ask you one question? If you read your writing, you have been able to predict fairly accurately what has come about in this conflict between Ukraine and Russia. You talk about the declining powers of the West. You talk about these corrupt agencies inside the United States. It seems like, I don't know if this is just how I feel or if this is true, that the Western dominance of the world is at an inflection point where it will be very humbling to those of us who feel like this America's the greatest country in the world and we're safe and we're far from conflict and we're insulated. That's going to be a hard lesson for all of us. Are you afraid?
You mean afraid of writing this? No, absolutely not.
Afraid of this inflection point. If you're right about this,
it scares me.
Which you've been right about other things, then it
scares me to death.
Yeah.
It scares me to death. You said you have 3 children. I have twin daughters, and they're going to inherit this world. And it's going to be a world different than the one that we lived in, that we live in, where I grew up at a time when the United States was the supreme power, and there's a sort of security that comes along with that, whether it's artificial security or whatever. It's there. That era is gone. The United States is now going to be one among equals at the table. Fighting for scraps, because we're going to see the world. It's going to come down to a struggle of resources, and the United States will no longer be able to use the rules-based international order to create a hegemony that feeds the American appetite. We're going to have to be out there competing with other powers to gain access to the resources we need to survive, and it's going to be much more difficult to survive as a nation. You're going to see our nation transition into something new, maybe better, maybe worse, but it's going to be different than what it is right now. And anytime you speak of that kind of large transition in a rapid period of time, because this is going to happen within the next couple of years and the next decade. We're not talking a century from now, we're talking 10 years from now. And that's scary because we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. We can't predict the future.
Well, I love your work, Scott, and I love that you're a Bob Dylan fan too. I see that over the shoulder too.
You saw that?
Yeah, huge Bob Dylan fan around here. And I want to drive everyone to pre-order Scott's new book. Go and do this right now. It's available on Amazon. Here it is. It's called Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika. arms control and the end of the Soviet Union. Who better to write about this than Scott? Go pre-order it now. It's on Amazon right now. You can do the pre-order and pick it up. Our thanks to Scott Ritter for joining us today for the whole hour, for a deep discussion on a lot of topics. We hope you'll come back soon, Scott. We really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
You bet. And I should mention, we have an in-depth interview with Scott that I did separately. That'll be airing this week as well on Redacted Conversations. So you'll be sure to check that out later this week for an in-depth interview with Scott. Really, really telling about just how this whole apparatus works. We talk deep state. We talk, a number of deep subjects. Really, really fascinating.
The more I read these kinds of pieces and the more I see, like he's saying, this writing on the wall that the United States will no longer be this sort of hegemony anymore. I think about this in every little piece of what it means to take care of your family. I remember when we moved to Europe thinking like, oh, am I going to be able to get my Trader Joe's broccoli florets, organic broccoli florets? Like, this is a convenience I'm used to, is like dump them on a roasting pan with olive oil, right? And it's so easy. And I have to cut my own broccoli living here. Like,
Imagine
these
that.
types of things, when I see individually wrapped conveniences, I realize these things won't be available to my children anymore, either because of climate change, because of, the water that it takes to get berries from Mexico. I think of it all the time, that these are conveniences that are not going to be around any much longer. The ability to drive wherever you want just for fun in a guzzling car, all of these types of things, right? I feel it, and I can't.
Well, even like go darker. I mean, talk about what could happen with a nuclear war, right? I mean, you have the Polish one of the Polish leaders. We didn't talk about this in the show today. Basically saying, yeah, you know what, things are getting desperate now in Ukraine. So, here was the story. And you know what? We need to send nukes into Ukraine. Like that's the next stage. Like,
Right.
okay, you know what? It's getting so desperate now. Now we need to send nuclear weapons.
Yeah, that's worse than the broccoli.
Yeah, that's worse than your broccoli florets. I mean,
Yes, I was just talking about what
Actually,
we can do and how we need to prepare ourselves
I'm just saying,
for
like, when you think-
modern conveniences, but also like the hegemony of your culture,
Yeah.
too, of your language, of everything like that. It's something that I think about all the time, and I'm just wondering, is it because I'm doing this type of work, or is it true?
no, and you see everyone in our chat. I mean, we've got so many people watching tonight in our chat. Thank you for smashing the like button. But we see thousands of people here watching who are saying, look, like this, the United States is a hegemony. Like, your time is over. Like, this is, I'm glad you guys are aware of this, and we've been covering this here on the show. It's not like we're just becoming aware of it tonight. We've been talking about the decline for quite a while. And, as Scott has written about, you lose a war in Afghanistan. You lose a war in, it's hard to keep track of all the wars that we've lost over the past number of years.
Yes.
You keep losing these wars, and it shows, it actually shows your true colors in these situations now, and the United States does. So we're going to be looking more closely at that. I want you to make sure you check out Scott's interview that we did. So that'll be later this week. We want to thank our show sponsor before we do some super chats and get you out of here. So
I can do that.
You can. Our
I
friends
am
over at
prepared for this
Thuma.
one.
So Thuma, yeah. I'm trying to get you outside for vitamin D. Anyway, Thuma in the bedroom.
Right. Okay. So if you are the kind of person who does what my sister calls WFB, not work from home, work from your bedroom, especially you need Thuma, right? Now is a great time to refresh your bedroom and make it a place that does not bring you anxiety. Make it a place that is your moment of Zen, your place of Zen, right? That's where Thuma comes in. Thuma practices an intentional less is more design philosophy for the bedroom with clean lines, subtle curves, and lifestyle enhancing details. Thuma proves that simplicity is the truest form of sophistication, and we want to show you The Bed by Thuma. It's handcrafted and eco-friendly, high-quality, upcycled wood. You'll find beautiful, unique variations in the natural grain. This minimalist design featuring Japanese joinery helps elevate any space. It's super supportive for your mattress of choice, breathable, and made to naturally minimize noise and create space. because, you know, you don't want a creaky bed that wakes up your spouse and then you get a cranky spouse. I know what that's like. It's made for how you live. The bed by Thuma is backed by a lifetime warranty, and it ships right to your door in 3 easy to maneuver boxes and takes the about 5-ish minutes to assemble with no tools required. You can build it yourself. Now, alongside the bed, Thuma also offers other bedroom essentials to elevate bedtime. The nightstand, the side table, and the tray are perfect complements to the bed, and Thuma works with One Tree Planted to plant 1 tree for every bed and nightstand sold. All of their essentials are Green Guard Gold certified. So to create that feeling of checking into your favorite boutique hotel suite, but at home with the bed by Thuma, go to thuma.co/redacted to receive a $25 credit towards your purchase of the bed.
So it's not .com.
No, .co.
.co.
That's right. So it's Thuma, THUMA.co/redacted for that $25 credit towards your purchase of the bed, plus free shipping in the continental United States.
All right. So let's check some super chats now. And I should, before we do that, remind all of you that we do have a website. We want you to sign up. It's totally free. Come over there and support the show at redacted.inc. Redacted.inc, because look, big tech is censoring people left and right. And so this is a place that we've built away from big tech, away from these tech oligarchs. Okay, so we're on Rumble. It's built by the Rumble infrastructure over at redacted.inc. So that way you can come support us. Any of the videos, by the way, that we feel like we can't actually air here on this channel on YouTube, we air them on redacted.inc and our Rumble channel, which has that infrastructure. So very, very important to go over there. Just sign up, become a member, and then we actually can email you when we do special events. We have special content that we release a day early or a few days early in some situations. We're doing special live events just for Redacted members. So that's our way of saying thank you. So come on over and make sure you're subscribed for free at redacted.inc. So, all right. Should we dive into some super chats?
Sure.
All right. Let's do a few super chats.
We sure have some.
All right.
Okay. So we have, first up, Alex C. Raytheon holding strong even as market tumbles.
Oh, that's a shock.
Go figure.
I did see Boeing actually drop this morning. Boeing and Chevron were the two leaders that dropped this morning. So, but Raytheon holding strong, of course.
Okay. Well, you know where Congress puts their money.
Right. Let's see. Then we've got. Oh, did you want to comment on that, or?
No, because I'm not sure the context, and I apologize we missed it.
No problem. Rafael Lingande. I'm a former Marine, and I am so proud of you, sir.
That's not for us.
No.
That's for Scott.
That's for Scott.
That was for Scott, I'm sure.
We'll pass it on. Thank you so much.
And then we've got a question for Mr. Ritter. Do you think we'll still have a country left by 2024? And if Trump is in office, can he fix foreign and domestic problems? So I think Scott's already left. So
yeah, he had
but
to run.
I feel like maybe the question that I asked was along the same lines: is what will become of us? I don't know if he puts any stock in one leader over another, though. I don't even know if he was.
No, I don't think so. But yeah.
And then we have Natalie's meme, or Nate's meme. Sorry, I just read that as Natalie's because it just started that way. Yeah. Nate's memes. Gas prices are getting higher than Hunter Biden.
Okay, good one.
I don't know how high Hunter Biden is right now.
Me neither.
I can't see him from here.
Do you know that Joe Biden is sober? He doesn't drink.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he does not drink alcohol.
You'd think the presidency would knock that out of anybody, but that's just me.
Right. You think you'd kind of need it. Actually, I think that Trump also was, if I'm not mistaken, Trump also, and Clayton is saying George W. was also sober. Because alcohol, it just dehydrates you and makes you so tired. I don't think you can keep that schedule if you have that as part of your regular life.
You don't want somebody whiskey drunk with nuclear codes either. So
yeah.
Let's see, Mark
I say
Andrzejak.
at the very least, let's keep electing sober people. Maybe that's a good plan to start from here.
Let's make a pact.
Yes.
So if only the government of Ukraine treated its people better, we wouldn't be on the verge of World War III. Most people in the USA would freak if they were treated the same.
That seems to
And
be.
then we had
Yeah.
Bolo and April Journey in the Moment. Is Tulsi G one of the young WEF members? True, false?
What's WEF?
I don't
World
know.
Economic Forum, I'm guessing.
So she was, apparently she would like, when she was younger, she was like, I don't know, underneath Schwab. I don't know. I need to look into it more. I don't know her long history.
Oh, I was just trying to cut to that. We've got Blizzard Wizard. Thanks for inviting Scott.
Absolutely.
Glad you enjoyed.
Evest Simones. Curious to know who here on chat were previously Democrats but are now Republican because of what Biden has done to this country. And then the same person, to keep it 100% Natalie. Oh, to keep it 100% Natalie. These modern conveniences are ending because of the previous blind supporters of the Democrat Party. It's purely their fault. Watch 2,000 Mules.
Okay. What's tool? I think you're the second person to tell.
It's Dinesh D'Souza's movie.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions about
Green November.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, you can. I was just going to read the next one, but
yeah, go ahead.
Green November. What was the factor that made you go from Fox, and what can you tell us about corporate media? A bit inside info. God bless.
Sure. So yeah, I was a news anchor at Fox News for 10 years.
Yeah. Yes.
And before that, 10 years all over the country, moving. I started out as a producer for Fox in Los Angeles at like 21 years old, then to Montana as a political reporter for CBS News. That was my first on-air job. Then West Virginia as an NBC news anchor, and then to a show called The Daily Buzz, and then to a Fox affiliate in Philadelphia. So all over the country, and then finally to the network for the last 10 years. And all I can tell you is that when I was hired by Roger Ailes, he said to me, just be yourself on the air. That's the only thing that's the only instructions he ever gave me, was to be myself on the air. And I was able to be myself on the air. People were like, I never knew what is your politics? Because I would always ask tough questions of Democrats and Republicans on the air, and no one could ever figure like because I was an independent. So, but after 10 years of doing that and waking up at 3:30 in the morning, and, seeing like the constant sort of, it devolved. It became like way more political, the morning show that I worked on, and it just really devolved. Like clear battle lines were drawn, I think. And I said, enough's enough. And then after the Charlottesville riots, when you could have really nasty stuff was said to me for calling out the president at the time, saying, hey, President Trump, absolutely is an opportunity for him to stand up and denounce what just happened. And then it was this like wishy-washiness. So anyway, it was after that point I was like, why am I getting up at 3:30 in the morning to deal with this?
Yeah. I mean, both of us we changed our focus when we became parents and no longer wanted to work in mainstream media, and it just didn't feel like it worked for our family. And so it's, I didn't think that we would go it ourselves and re-embrace that type of this type of news on our own. But it has been quite liberating, because what we can tell you is, even if you're allowed to have your own personality on the media, there is a pre-existing set of questions, and each segment that is produced with the opportunity to tell you something that has already been lined out by the narrative of the network. And there's very little free thinking that goes on inside of media like that. And it's nice when we write our newsletter every morning and we produce this show, we think through, what does this mean for our family and other families, not just how we establish ourselves as experts or journalists or voices or anything like that, but I want to feel this together, what we're going through as a society. I feel like If we can be a voice that asks questions that's pertinent to other people who have children like us or families like us, or even if you're on your own or you're caring for somebody, this is, we have to think it through because it's affecting our lives so acutely these days.
We have a daily newsletter that we write. It's still under the old name. It's still called Morning Invest. But please come over and sign up. If you go to morninginvest.com, Natalie writes it first thing in the morning. I interject and write it as well and help out. But we publish sort of four or five stories that we think are important for the day to kickstart your morning. Over your cup of coffee, you can read it in about 5 to 10 minutes over your cup of coffee. It's totally free. You can sign up. We're going to be changing the branding on it, though. We're going to be changing it to Redacted. We just had the website's not ready yet on that side, so we're still waiting on David's working on that with the team to get that moved over. So, but right now it's still morninginvest.com. You can sign up for free, and you'll get a welcome email, and then tomorrow you'll get the first email here. Let me see what that's about.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. We had a great crowd. That was very exciting for us. We appreciate your enthusiasm and your contributions. If we did not read your comment live, we did see most of them, and we go back and read them. And your comments inform the way we continue to ask questions. So thank you for your participation. We will see you here tomorrow. Please hit that like button. If you have not already, share this out with your friends. Make sure you're a subscriber. If that subscribe button is red, meaning you have not hit it yet, hit it. Just do it.
Hit it and quit it.
Yes, we appreciate that.
So thanks everyone for supporting the show. Thanks everyone for supporting independent journalism. We really, really appreciate it because, again, I come back to the mainstream media thing. Like, again, they're going to spin you a yarn, and we try not to do that here at all. We try to give you the straight skinny. Whichever way the wind flows, we will follow it. So much love.
The wind doesn't flow. The wind blows.
The wind blows. The water flows.
The water flows.
Right, you can tell we're tired. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Our thanks to Scott Ritter for joining us as well tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.